So again, my name is Julie Muccini, and I'm an occupational therapist. I work in the outpatient neuro rehab clinic. I am not a certified driving rehab specialist or a certified driving rehab instructor. I'm working towards one of those paths, not the instructor, the specialist. I do a lot of driving evaluations for individuals after stroke and traumatic brain injury and other progressive weakness diseases, trying to determine the ability to manage a vehicle. So there's different aspects to driving, and so we're going to go through what's required. Ooh. What happened? It went blank. Okay. What's required to begin the process, what's necessary to be a safe driver. So no relevant financial or non-financial relationships to disclose, because I do talk about a lot of vendors, but it's important to mention that. So we'll talk about increasing your understanding and awareness of steps for receiving a California driver's license, increased understanding of the medical form required by the DMV, and options for adaptive driving controls, and then increased awareness to local and national level resources. So before you even begin the whole process to even determine if you're capable of this adaptive driving, we have to go through to determine, do you have the abilities to drive a vehicle? Do you have the visual abilities, the cognitive abilities, the motor functioning abilities? So in order to do that, we suggest you get a referral from your doctor to have an evaluation by an OT who can help you determine these skills. So cognitive skills, when we ask individuals to come into the clinic, we'll go through different types of tasks that will help us determine your level of attention, your problem-solving skills, your ability to read instructions and look at symbols and identify what they are. We'll go through practice DMV tests to determine how you're able to comprehend those types of requirements in the DMV driver manual. Visual, we have a tool called the useful field of view, useful field of vision, where we're identifying your central visual processing, your divided attention, and your selective attention, and that helps determine your ability to process visual information very quickly. And depending on your score, it can help determine a level of risk associated with crashing a motor vehicle. And so we will use that in conjunction with being on the driving simulator, which also will help us identify your ability to process visual information, problem solving, and that can help determine your readiness to actually begin the driving process. Motor functioning and strength. Oops, go back. So we want to know your reaction time. If you're seeing a stimulus, can you react in a timely manner? Are you demonstrating the ability to react with your gas, react with your brake, steer, see visual cues, and react appropriately? And if we go through all of this testing and the numbers are not suggesting that you're safe, then we will either determine if there's an opportunity for driving rehab, if we could train you or coach you to get to a better place where your reaction is faster, you're able to demonstrate attention, your ability to demonstrate impulse control, then we would continue the process. If we have certain diagnosis, like I said, in my clinic we see many individuals, and for example, anything with Alzheimer's, so forms of dementia, any forms of lapses of consciousness, so narcolepsy, or if you have a cardiac condition where you're subject to fainting, then automatically the DMV will just suspend your license and you would not be allowed to get a license. Also, individuals with a type of seizures that are not being managed, then you would not be allowed to go for your license either. And you can have a seizure disorder if you're managed by medication, but once you have a seizure, then you have to wait 6 months and be seizure-free before you can continue. So there's a whole range of diagnosis that the DMV just automatically says, no way. And so we kind of go through all the strengths that you have. This is the basics. You know, this is the website for the DMV, dmv.california.gov, and it's an okay website. It will definitely provide some nice information and some free tests, because no matter what, even after you've gone through all the clinical assessments, you still have to pass the content test, the written test, before you could even explore working with a certified driving rehab instructor to get behind the wheel. So everyone has to pass the written test, and you're allowed to get up to 8 wrong. And it's about 46 or 48 questions, and with a maximum of 8 wrong. And then from that process, you'd have a permit, and then you'd go through the process of getting your test. One of the basic things from the DMV after the written test, of course, they'll test your vision, a basic Snellen, but that doesn't tell much apart from you can read large letters on the screen. It doesn't determine whether you're processing appropriately, but just so you know, this is one of the things they have up in the DMV, up on the board behind the cash register. The other thing I wanted to discuss, if the DMV is requiring that you have the drive, before we get into the adaptive driving, which we will, the driver medical evaluation form is pretty lengthy. Do you think I can jump out and just show it? Mm-hmm. Basically, it will, there. So this is the first page. It's 5 pages. So a lot of folks that come in, I actually have teenagers that have come in after they've had a stroke, and so we go through the clinical process, and then they have to meet with their doctor, and the doctor will review my notes, and they'll see that we looked at the vision, and we looked at cognition and motor functioning and all the pieces that makes you safe to begin the driving process. And then you would fill out page 1, okay, and then your doctor would fill out the remaining pages, okay, so that's your page 1, and then the doctor fills out this, and this is, okay, so I'm not going to fly by, but, so this is your treatment by other medical professionals, treatment under your supervision, levels of functional impairments, so any visual issues, dementia or cognitive impairments, lapses of consciousness disorder, so they'd have to sign off on that, diabetes, and then all of these diagnoses, and then any additional comments. So in this section, they could say, yeah, they've been working with an OT in a clinic, or they've determined that they have these strengths. We support them beginning the process. And then that paperwork gets submitted to the DMV, and the address is there, so that gets mailed to the DMV. And then if they want to meet with you, you'd get a letter, and you'd come in and meet with a driving safety officer, and they would talk with you, and then with the permit, you would look for, and you would find a certified driving rehab instructor to begin the process with the adaptive controls. Okay, so let me go to this. Yep, is that good? Okay. So that's the driver medical evaluation form. The ADAD is the Association for Driver Rehabilitation Specialists. So, okay, great. Yay, you passed your written test, okay? You've taken the written test, you passed, you officially have a permit. Now you meet with someone who can actually facilitate the training, because it is specialized training. And this would be the website you could go to find a driving a certified driving rehab instructor in your area. Totally jumping, but if you end up if you have a van, you would definitely want to make sure that whichever dealership, or let's say you're looking into a van, that the dealership who may be selling you that specialized van has the quality assurance program. They have to be part of QAP and also NMEDA, which is the National Mobility Equipment Dealers Association. So just be mindful that you want to work with car dealerships that have these levels of certification. Just a brief, the electronic controls for your vehicle. These adaptive electronic controls, these functions are easily accessible even for those with significant physical limitations. A little bit more on electronic, I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to show you some pictures because that's the fun stuff. So there are many different gadgets and tools out there. This, for example, this is an example of a joystick which would be utilized to help drive. So the controls in your car can be very small. So given your abilities, the size of the controls and the location can be exactly tailored to you. So here's one example. This would be your gas and your brake. So it's a very small tool. It's probably no bigger than my phone. And it would just sit exactly next to you so that you could access it given the strength and motor control that you have. This is an example of the steering wheel. And that steering wheel, same thing, is probably this big, and it would be mounted here. So your steering wheel would be in front of you, and this steering wheel would be right next to you. And it could have pieces on it that stick up so that versus you doing this motion, you could just do a little bit of rotation that would facilitate the steering of the vehicle. So this is one example, and I know this is called a tri. See this part here where your hand would kind of get wedged in, and then off of that, here, you would be utilizing your movement and muscle strength to do the steering. And then this would be the gas and the brakes. And then the steering wheel would be moving, and you wouldn't have to touch it at all. So that's one example. And this came off the Mobility Works website. This is another example. Can you see this pad here? So there's a pad that I'm going to show you. It's EMC secondary driving controls, and that allows you to turn on the car, operate all the features of the car, and it's this small touchpad, and that would be mounted to be close to you so that you could access everything. So this is an example of electronics drive controls. So there's multiple options. So for example, option A, the most commonly used option that EMC provides, it has almost every function that would be required in a vehicle: ignition, starting, lights, turn signals and hazards, horn and dimmer, wipers, cruise on and set, shifting, windows, locks, parking, brake. And that would be just a very small electronic pad that would be in your zone. This image was courtesy of rideaway.com, so if you want to look at more of the features and different types of driving options, you can always go onto these websites. I'm going to show you a video, but let me just run through other options for locking your power chair in front of the drive controls. So Easy Lock, do you have Easy Lock? Yeah, you don't? Okay. So this is one type of locking mechanism that would be mounted underneath the power chair. It has a little, the dealership can put it on versus the vendor. The wheelchair vendors don't generally mount these. It's probably, well, they could, but you could go to the car dealership and they'd lock it because they're going to be the ones installing it into your vehicle. So you want the dealership to dial in your Easy Lock bolt with the easy lock that's in the vehicle, and that would allow you to drive in and position yourself in front of the steering mechanism. But there's other kinds. This seems to work very well for most of my patients. This one, I've heard negative comments, and I guess it's because it's really difficult to exactly line up with this area here. So, but it just depends. So after showing you all those really delightful and super cool features, I think it's important to mention the cost associated with adding assistive controls into your vehicle. So it's really upwards of $30,000 to $40,000, and that's not including the cost of the van. So it's really quite expensive, and I've not really heard of insurance companies willing to pay to adapt the vehicle. There's other other types of organizations that may facilitate paying, but it's really expensive for sure. So financing your wheelchair accessible vehicle. Purchasing a wheelchair accessible vehicle can be expensive. Finding funding for these purchases can be a challenge. If you don't know where to look, fortunately, one of the websites I mentioned earlier, which is NMEDA dealers, are specially trained to guide you to programs that might apply to you. So I would for sure follow up with those organizations, and that's their whole job. They want to work with you to find dealerships or funding sources to get into these types of vehicles. Again, more details about certified driving rehab instructors. And on that ADED website, I listed some of the local certified driving instructors. So, oh, I didn't mean to do that. So see the difference? So if you're going on there to find instructors, this guy does a lot of work for us actually, and so does he. And so does she. But in any case, so they're certified driving rehab specialist and they're certified driving instructor. When it's actually time to get behind the wheel, it's the instructor that is, when the rubber meets the road versus the specialist who may just do the clinic-based assessments. So it's important to ask them those direct questions. Do you actually have experience with guiding and training someone to drive a vehicle with these specialized controls? So that's really important to ask a bunch of questions. This is what I wanted to show you. So let's see if we can watch this video. This is a young man with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, and he's from British Columbia. So just hit here. And so he has a vehicle where the controls are really forgiving, and they can actually adapt to the force that he has, so they can tailor it to exactly him, and it has voice control. So it's I haven't seen it yet, but apart from this gentleman, so I need to do a little bit more homework. Is there volume? Is that gonna go? If we do laptop, I can give the laptop my microphone, you know what I mean? Oh, go back. Oh, it says mute. It's only 2 minutes and 38 seconds, but I really like it. And he's super pleasant. Oh, there you go. Oh. That's weird.
I'm not sure.
You want to undo that one? Oh, I see. Good. No? Maybe because, well, you can't hear him, but let's just watch. On the right one?
Sounds. It should tell you which one's the output. So it looks like you're playing on this stuff.
Oh, good. Can you start from the beginning? Okay, so that's great. Thanks. Thank you.
Behind the wheel is a big deal. That's a blinker. But for Sean Lill, the rite of passage is extra special. When I was younger, of course, I thought I would always be able to drive, but as my disability progressed, the disease does progress. Well, then I just started to think, I like cars all my life, but it'll be a shame if I can't drive. Sean has Duchenne muscular dystrophy, a condition that causes his muscles to become weaker as he ages. He uses a wheelchair and has limited mobility. But as of last summer, Sean became the first person in Canada to be licensed to drive using the Joysteer electronic driving system. It allows people with minimal hand function to control a vehicle with a joystick. Driving UBC would be really fun. This isn't Sean's car. It belongs to his instructor, Dean Robertson.
I remember what it was like when I first got my license, right? It was all about independence, responsibility, and now for individuals with disabilities, they have that same opportunity to have that excitement and independence, and then also be a responsible driver.
While there are other adaptive driving technologies out there, Robertson says the Joysteer system has fewer limitations.
The Joysteer system is unique in that it allows you to change the amount of force with the hand control, and that means you can accommodate a wider array of clients.
The total cost to install this system in a vehicle is $70,000, but because driving isn't considered medically necessary, Sean's family is paying out of pocket. There's a lot of people who are disabled that don't have as many opportunities, right? So it would be great if the government would cover a significant amount of the price, because in all honesty, everyone wants to drive. Every other friend that I have who's in a power wheelchair or a wheelchair user, their dream is to just drive, to be independent, because for them, it's like driving would be everything. Sean's new vehicle, equipped with the Joysteer system, is scheduled to arrive by the end of the year. For me, I think, driving is just the start of everything to come. Val Brach, CBC News, Vancouver.
Thank you. Just escape. Okay. Thanks for that. Okay. In the beginning, I don't know if you missed, he said I think he said turn left or turn right, but he did use a voice command.
So I've been asked by a few people to upload a new video, a little bit of an updated one, considering that my last video was done in 2009 with a different band.
That was it, sorry. He did use a voice command, so that would be really helpful for many individuals to be able to use voice command to operate the vehicle. Here's some examples of vans, the rear loading, side loading. You can't take a regular minivan and convert it because the base of the regular standard minivan is too high, and then when you drive in with your chair, you would hit your head. So people say, do I have to have a specialized van? Yes, you do need a specialized van equipped for power wheelchairs. And as we mentioned, there are many steps to receive the California driver's license and to access the electronic driving controls. Definitely you want to follow up and look at ADED and the NMEDA for funding, and ADED to receive a list of, or to have access to the list of the certified driving rehab instructors. And do you have any questions? No? Short and sweet. Tina said she had spoken with someone about the kangaroo vehicle. I haven't, it's a new type of vehicle that you can drive in the back, and you can have adaptive controls mounted into that vehicle, but I haven't seen it yet. There's the ADED is having their annual conference July 28th and August 1st in New Mexico. So I'm sure they'll have a list of really interesting new assistive technology to share. So anyway, thank you.